The gentlewoman yields back the balance of her time. The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Paul, is recognized for 5 minutes.
I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks. Mr. Speaker, today the Federal Reserve lowered interest rates by 0.5 percentage point. They have been asked to lower this interest rates by just about everybody in the country, whether they're investors or politicians. Everybody's literally been screaming at the Fed and Alan Greenspan, lower the interest rates, lower the interest rates. And it was anticipated that he would, and he did. He lowered the interest rates by 50 basis points, and the stock market promptly went down 236 points. So obviously, just lowering interest rates is not the solution to the problems we face. Matter of fact, I believe it's the problem. Interest rates have been manipulated by the Federal Reserve for as long as I can remember, especially in the last 30 years since we've had a total fiat monetary system. So it is the manipulation of interest rates that causes our problems. In a free market economy, you don't have a central bank pretending it has knowledge it doesn't have, that it knows exactly what the money supply should be and what interest rates should be. That is a prescription for disaster. And it leads to booms and busts. Speculation in the stock markets, crashes in the stock markets. This is a well-known phenomenon. It's been with us since 1913, since we've had the Federal Reserve. We've seen it in the speculation in the 20s and the depression of the 1930s. And it's ongoing. And we have a responsibility here in the Congress to deal with this. We have a responsibility to maintain the integrity of the money. And yet we give up that responsibility to a secretive body that works on its own, deliberating and deciding how much money supply we should have. To lower interest rates, a central bank has to increase the money. That is debasement. That is devaluing the money deliberately. In the old days, when the king would do this, they would clip coins. Literally, coin debasement, stealing value from coinage in the old days was a capital crime. Today, though, it's accepted practice in all economies of the world. We have had no linkage of any currency of the world in the last 30 years to anything of real value. The economies have functioned relatively well, but just in the last 6 years, we have had 8 financial international crises, all patched together by more inflation, more printing of more money. And let me tell you, I am convinced it will not last, it will not continue. Take a look at what's happening in Japan today. Japan lowered their interest rates too. They've been doing this for a long time. They're down to 0%, and nothing seems to be happening. Their stock market's at a level it was at 16 years ago. We have to decide whether or not we may be moving into a similar situation. I think it's a very serious problem. We talk about interest rates, we talk about stimulating the economy, but we really don't talk about the problem, and that is the monetary system and the nature of the dollar. The money supply right now is currently rising at the rate of 20% as measured by MZM. This is horrendous inflation. This is inflation. Everybody says, no, there's reassurance. The Federal Reserve and all the statisticians say, there's no inflation. The CPI is okay and the PPI is okay. But there is inflation because if you increase the supply of money, you are creating inflation, and the most important aspect of that is the instability it creates in the marketplace. It doesn't always lead to a CPI increasing at 10 or 15%. Our CPI is rising significantly, and we have other prices going up significantly, like education costs and medical care costs, housing costs. So there's a lot of inflation even when you measure it by prices. But the real problem with the inflation, when you allow a central bank to destroy its money, is twofold. One, it creates a overcapacity or overinvestment, excessive debt, that always has to be wiped out and cleaned out of the situation, or it will not, or economic growth cannot be resumed. Japan has not permitted this to happen, and economic growth has not resumed. That is the most important aspect, because that causes the unemployment, and that causes the harm to so many people. Now, there's another aspect of inflation. That is the monetary debasement that I have a great concern about. is that when it goes to extremes, it inevitably wipes out the middle class. It destroys the middle class. And we are just starting to see that happening in this country. Low middle income earners, individuals who are still not on the dole but willing to work, they're having a tough time paying their bills. That is the early stages of what happens when a currency is destroyed. Last year, for the first time in our history of keeping this record, since 1945, in 55 years, the wealth of the American people went down 2%.
Time of the gentleman has expired.